Welcome to the 14th episode of Empty Hand, Open Mind Podcast. My name's Steve Wilson, and I've trained in Okinawan Goju-Ryu for 53 years. I'm currently the chairman and the chief instructor of an organization based here in the United States called Koryu Koshu Kai. And tonight I would like to talk about hard training and the pros and cons involved in that, and especially regarding hard kumite. So when I started karate in 1973, in every single class, Monday through Saturday, and usually there were 3 or 4 classes offered in the evening and 2 classes offered in high school by the same instructor. We did Junbyundo, Kihon, Kihonido, Kata, and Kumite. So every class we fought. Back then, there were no hand gear, head gear, chest protectors, foot gear. There was no protection, just hard kumite. Sweeps were common, and really hard contact to the body was common. Controlled contact to the face was still hard enough to cause a black eye, a cut over the eye, a bloody nose, busted lip, bruises, things like that. But no serious injuries, and there were injuries, but they weren't real frequent. There was a lot of hurt, but there wasn't a lot of permanent harm. So anyway, we didn't fight in a point style like tournament point fighting. We fought continuously until Sensei said yame, or he said mate. So either wait, pause, or stop. And one of the things that I had done as a foolish youth at 13 was ask Sensei, how do I become the best fighter in the world? And his response was, at the end of every class, go up and ask a black belt, a different black belt, to do Jiu Kumite. He said, just say, Jiu Kumite Onegashimasu. And so I did that for 5 years. And for 5 years, I got beat. I was a youth and I was a Q, and the black belts smoked me. And some let me work more than others, and some just took me out pretty quick. But it taught me a lot, and I'm grateful for those experiences. When I began competing, what I found was I got a lot of warnings and disqualifications because I wasn't used to stopping when I connected with somebody, because we literally never did that one time in the dojo. So I wasn't used to hitting or kicking a person once and they stopped the match completely. And so that was a big adjustment for me, but I adjusted. But after a few years of that, and I ended up having a lot of success. I actually went 2 years, which with each year, I got disqualified some, but losing on points. I lost one match in a year, and I lost one match in the next year. And I lost those matches to the same person, Sensei Toki Hill, who went on to win the first gold medal in Kumite World Gold Medal Championship for the United States in 1980, I believe in Spain. So anyway, I only had 2 years of, 1 year and then 2 years of point fighting. And he beat me both of those because he was the better point fighter. And I'm glad he did, because he won gold for America. So anyway, I wanted to switch, and I wanted to go more with contact like what we did in the dojo. And I wanted to not be stopped as soon as I connected with somebody. So it was really hard to find any kind of tournaments like that, even though a lot of tournaments back then you could hit and your fist or foot could sink an inch into their body, so basically no control. And then you had to have control to the head and face. But back then they didn't stop it for blood or a cut or black eye or things like that. You had to be dropped for the person to get disqualified almost. So I had a real difficult time, but I had a friend who was a brown belt in Kyokushinkai. And he told me, let's go fight in Kyokushinkai events. So I started entering Kyokushinkai events, and they always welcomed me. And sometimes it was a mistake telling them I was Goju because the word spread. And so the competitors all wanted to take out the Goju guy. But anyway, I wasn't accustomed to not being able to punch in the face or in the head. And it seemed very unnatural to me. And I knew the rules. I learned the rules, and I tried really hard not to punch in the face. But tons of my Kyokushinkai experiences initially, I was either warned, point taken, or disqualified. And many times disqualified because I made too hard a contact to the head and face. It's just a really, I mean, if you do kumite all out and continuous with no stopping other than a time limit or the sensei saying yame, and everything goes as far as where you can hit, then and kick, it's super hard to stop that muscle memory from doing that. So Kyokushinkai though taught me a lot. Like, we didn't do leg conditioning in Goju-do at that time. I didn't do Okinawan Goju at that time. I did Japanese Goju Kai. And we didn't do any leg conditioning, leg kicking, leg whipping at all. But I was 6'4" and about 168 pounds back then. And I was pretty fast, and I could get my leg out of the way, and I got really good at checking, which I did do that. I could check leg kicks pretty well. And of course, I also started throwing leg kicks. Even though that wasn't a part of my training at the time, it became a part of my training working on the bag and stuff. And my brown belt friend really helped me. Kyokushinkai gave me a lot of my initial full contact experience. And then I also started entering kickboxing tournaments and events held on weekends in different towns, and even attended, believe it or not, like the Choi brothers in Peoria, Illinois, had a full contact kickboxing match once a year, or matches once a year. And so I just started entering everything I could. And the rules were always different. And I never really completely, I didn't enter enough Kyokushinkai to fully get used to not punching in the face or head. But I can tell you that with Kyokushinkai, it was brutal back then because there were only open weight classes. There were no weight classes. So you could fight a person that weighed 110 pounds. You could fight a 400-pounder. And then when I was competing, it was only below black belt and above black belt. And so it was really, really valuable experience for me. And, knees to the body and kicks to the head and kicks. And my favorite technique was a Jodan Mawashigeri, a head kick using a roundhouse kick. And so that was my initial exposure to kind of full contact. And I got really, really into it for several years and ended up, fighting like 72 full contact matches. And I used to keep this little book. It's actually black, believe it or not, but this little black book of the date and location. And if I got my opponents' because you'd fight, depending on how you were winning and how you were doing, you could fight, 3 to 5 times to win a tournament. And, I didn't always remember or get my opponent's name, and I didn't have my book right there to write it in. I always had to write it in afterward. But I carried that thing around for over 20 years before I finally lost it in a move. And you never knew who you were going to fight. You didn't know what their weight was. You didn't know what their strengths were. There was no studying them. But just what I want to say is that in full contact fighting and training for full contact fighting, long before MMA ever was invented or created or was a sport, takes a toll on you. So I suffered, broken hands, broken arm, a broken jaw. Believe it or not, I won the fight that I got a broken jaw, and I won the fight I got a broken arm. But it's still, those are injuries. I got broken ribs, broken fingers, my knee hurt, 2 knee surgeries, et cetera, et cetera. So, it takes a toll on you. And training for that kind of fighting takes a toll on you. And back when I was coming up, there was only one way to train, and that was you train harder than the fight's gonna be. So you had already conquered in your mind. You had already conquered a worse experience than what the actual matches were going to be. And that's what coaches told you, senseis told you, and that's what you told yourself. So you put in the hard work and then it paid off. But here's the problem with that. Man, I always went to competition with super deep bruises, with injuries, different parts of my body hurt, in pain, pulled hamstrings, a hurt knee. Just, you didn't show up to the fight in good condition. You were usually hurt because the training and preparation was hard, and we didn't back off and let your body heal and recover as you got closer to the fight or fights. And you had to be really, really conditioned because, fighting 3 to 5 or 6 fights is tough. It's really hard to do. And Kyokushinkai guys are tough, and they've got grit. And, they don't allow the punching to the face for safety. And so I never trained in Kyokushinkai. They were not only gracious hosts, but they were excited to have a Goju guy there, and they all wanted to beat me up. And it resulted in fun competition. So my feelings on hard training is necessary, and that's how I came up, and that's how I taught for years and years and years and years and years and years. I started teaching in 81 or 2, and I just, killed my students every class, and myself along with them. I mean, you're going to think I'm exaggerating, but I have a lot of people that can vouch for me. We used to run in the streets before class barefoot and go back to the dojo and, kind of calm down and catch our breath, get a drink. And then it wasn't unusual to do 500 jumping jacks consecutively and then get a break and then do 100 squat kicks and then start formal Jumbo and then train 2 hours. And it was common to see, we had a great big, huge, I was kind of in an old warehouse, my dojo was, and in Lindsay, California. And we had this really big, huge, like farm sink, or I think it's better to be called a laundry sink. And sometimes there would be, 3 to 6 people back there throwing up in it at the same time. Not a pretty sight or sound for sure, but that's just how I thought training was supposed to be. And, hitting the Makiwara, every day and doing heavy bag work every day and doing heavy sparring every day and high cardio and tons and tons and tons of exercises, singing leg lifts and bicycling backwards and setups, endless setups and endless squat kicks and, hundreds upon hundreds and upon hundreds of repetitions in Kihon. I mean, and every class was at least 2 hours. There were no 45-minute or hour classes. So listen, that kind of training develops a spirit in you can't buy. Money can't buy it. And it teaches you so much about yourself. And what's really cool about karate is everybody hits and reaches their limit and gets humbled. It's the same thing with gradings. My whole life it was, after you train 3 days in Gasku, and then you test, and your grading is, 4 or 5 hours. And at the end of it, you fight 5 or 6 people, and it's hard kumite. And so you always get humbled because you're so exhausted. It's impossible for you to be the best because at the end of 3 days of Gasku and then a 5-hour grading, you're fighting fresh people who aren't grading with you. So it keeps your humility in check, and it teaches you how it feels to be exhausted with people hitting and kicking you. But there's a downside to that path. Now, I think it's imperative and a super important part of karate that you reach your physical and mental and even spiritual limit. Spiritual, I'm referring to that when your mental capacity, your physical gives out, then your mental has to kick in and push you and carry you on. And then it gives out and you can't even think clearly, but your spirit, your internal spirit pushes you forward, even though you don't even know what you're doing. It takes that kind of training to achieve that. And that makes you a person that's not a quitter, and that almost nothing can make you quit. So in a life or death situation, the dude has to kill you to stop you. And our training teaches us that. So I'm grateful for it. But here's the downsides. You stay injured. You stay exhausted. Often you don't have time to recover. I was training 6 days a week, so I never got to recover. I never recovered. And that causes damage. And that doesn't make you healthier. It makes you more prone to illness and problems because you're always in a state of exhaustion and repair, and you need rest and repair. And when you push that hard, your body eventually gives up. It's worn down, and you need rest. So the other thing is it's just not healthy to constantly be getting injured. So I think there needs to be a balance. So think about yin and yang and think about life. You know, to appreciate the sun, you need to experience darkness. And to appreciate darkness, you need to experience a super hot sun. And to really get the full effect of happiness and elation, you have to suffer in unhappiness. So those contrasts is what makes all the great things amazing, right? So if you don't ever experience hardship ever, do you really appreciate when things are easy? I don't think so. So karate is the same way. You need to have a balance. So regularly train really, really, really hard, but then if you're training all the time, you can probably train as hard as you possibly can train if you only train twice a week. But if you train 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week, some of those classes should just be more technical than they are of trying to get you to your very total limit, to where your limit extends. Doing that 4 or 5 days a week is too much. It's proven. Do you know there's actually studies that show that excessive training for karate on a world stage competition level for either full contact karate or combat and or even just sport competition at that level, training like that every week, week after week, shortens your life. It doesn't extend it. And you know that if you train in karate in a balanced measure and or you're not training on a high competition or combative level every week, it can extend your life in studies by 7 to 10 years. And then it can shorten your life if you're excessive. So did you hear that? It can shorten your life if you train excessively. And I'm going to tell you, man, I trained excessively for way too many years. I taught people excessively. We trained too hard. I should have had more balance. I should have created more balance in myself and for my students, but I didn't. When you're younger, you're full of, fight and vigor, and you just want to out-train your opponent. And you say stuff to yourself like, if I take a day off and rest, my opponent's training. And when we meet, I'll lose. That's the kind of stuff you tell yourself. And you don't even think about taking shortcuts or breaks or resting because you come up thinking that's going to harm you or lower your chances of winning. And, I'm talking about really competitive and full contact karateka. It's the same holds true, though, for just a dojo. If you're just training in a dojo, but the classes are 2 hours and you train, 4, 5, 6 days a week, and they take you to complete total exhaustion every time, every class, that is not good for you. And if you're doing that, you should stop it and you should start having more balance in your training. So you balance everything else in life, right? You work hard, you play hard, you train hard, but then you also got to rest. And if you're only sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night, you're going to come down and crash. Things are going to give out. When you don't take time to eat nutritious meals and you're eating fast food because you're always in a hurry, it's going to catch up with you. It's going to catch up with you. When you party too much, it's going to ruin your liver. It's going to increase your chance of cancer. It's going to make you less healthy. All those things are just dumb. And the thing is, we don't usually learn that until we already did all that. And so I'm on here today sharing with you at 66 years of age, been there, done that, and it's not good for you. And you need to balance it. And if you want to train until you die, if you want to train until you're, 90, then you better train with balance when you're middle-aged and starting to approach older age. And your bonsai years should end when you're no longer young and you're no longer competitive and you're no longer facing other opponents and things like that. And if you're just in a dojo setting where you never have faced opponents just other than those in the dojo, there's no reason, and it makes no sense for you to train to exhaustion 4, 5, 6 days a week. That's silly. Train to exhaustion a couple times a week, and the other days of training, have them balanced and be more technical. You'll still sweat. You're still exercising. You're still not a couch potato, but you're not destroying yourself. So, besides just being physical, it helps to be smart too. And training beyond your limit to extend your limit 6 or 7 days a week is stupid. It is stupid. And I know I have a big stupid stamp on my forehead. I did that. And, do I regret it now? No, I don't. But now I'm smarter and I'm older and I realize I was stupid. My senseis didn't make me do that. Man, I could have just went to the dojo 3 days a week, and 4 days is plenty of healing, but I didn't. I went to the dojo 6 days a week. So I suffered that 6 days a week. And, I even trained on my own when I wasn't in the dojo. And I trained at work. When I was doing something that allowed me to stretch or to throw punches or to throw kicks while I was standing there doing something, I did. And that's what you do when you're training at the highest level you're physically, humanly possible that you can do. That's what you do. That's a kind of spirit that no one has to make you train. You have to train. That's who you are. I've never, ever had a teacher that had to make me train. Not ever. I've always trained at home. Even when I was 13, I trained at home. Besides going to the dojo 6 days a week and training 2 classes a day, every day in school. I still went home and practiced. I've just always been that way. And I've always been that way kind of in everything I do. So I'm speaking from experience. Man, I've had a lot of injuries, and I've had 2 back surgeries and 2 left knee surgeries, and my arm reset and my hand set and my knuckles busted and my ribs broke and me bandaged and my jaw broke. And, none of that stuff's good for you. None of it's good for you. And you're going to get hurt and you're going to be injured if you compete at a high level. If you fight in competition that's full contact, you're going to get hurt. And if you don't do that and you train at a dojo, but you don't compete and you're not at a high level and you don't do combative competition, you're still doing something that isn't good for you if you're doing it 4, 5, 6 days a week to complete total, utter exhaustion, to where the premise is you're extending your limit. You don't need to do it that much to extend your limit. So train smarter and train longer and train wiser with balance. So let your body rest. Get good sleep. If you're cramping, look into what's making you cramp. What are you short of? What minerals are you lacking? Always stay hydrated. Try to eat healthy. And try to balance your training. Karate is a lot more fun when every single session isn't intended to kill you. So I don't teach like that anymore. Class is still hard. You'll still be soaked in sweat. You won't walk out saying, boy, that was really easy. You'll walk out saying it was challenging, but you won't be dead. I used to train people to where when we bowed out, they either laid on the floor or they walked outside and laid down outside on the ground. They didn't even walk to their car. So that's what I'm talking about. But it built their spirit. But I did that every class. I didn't do it a couple classes a week. I did it every class. So, all those students had heart and they had spirit and they wouldn't quit for anything. But it wasn't wise of me as their teacher. But I didn't know then what I know now. I hadn't experienced then what I've experienced since. So balance your life and balance your training. And remember to not go 100% of the time. And it's okay to talk and have this discussion with your sensei and with your senpais and with your kohai and talk about how you can help each other with a plan that you have for yourself on this journey. So that's what I wanted to share tonight, and I really appreciate you tuning in. And really, man, my main message is just take care of yourself. Just take care of yourself. And, sometimes, sadly, senseis aren't aware with 50 people on the floor or 100 people on the floor. They're not aware that you've turned white and that you're clammy and you're not sweating and you're cold, your skin's cold, and you're about to drop. They don't catch it, unfortunately. They should, and they're there to protect you and to save you, but they miss it. I've seen it. And you got to take care of yourself, man. You're an adult, and you got to take care of yourself. You got to know when you've hit that. And when you can extend your limit safely and your sweat's still real slick and you haven't turned white and you're not seeing yellow dots all over the room, then keep pushing. Keep on trucking and pushing until you start feeling the woozy woo or the, hey, I'm getting there, I'm almost at my end. But don't do that every class. All I want for you, don't even know you, all I want for you is the best. And what I want for you is the healthiest journey, most productive, progressive journey you can take in this wonderful art they call karate. And I love karate. I'm going to do karate till I don't breathe, but now I'm going to do it in a more smart way. And I hope that through this video or on your own, you've learned that too. Anyway, all my best to you. Keep training, and I'll see you next time on Empty Hand, Open Mind Podcast. Good night.